The moment Eleanor Winters stepped into the ballroom, time seemed to freeze. Draped in a gown that caught the light like liquid silver, she moved with quiet confidence through a crowd that had never expected to see her. Across the room, her husband Marcus, the man who had kept her hidden away for years, dropped his champagne flute. The shattering glass was lost beneath the collective gasp of Manhattan's elite. This wasn't just any society event, this was the night Eleanor reclaimed her life, her dignity, and in the process, stole the spotlight from everyone who had ever doubted her worth. If you're enjoying this story of redemption and transformation, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories that will leave you thinking long after they end. Marcus Winters had built his reputation as a self-made real estate mogul with impeccable taste. At 45, he possessed the sharp features and calculated charm that opened doors throughout New York's highest circles. His penthouse overlooking Central Park served as the perfect backdrop for his carefully curated image: successful, sophisticated, and, most importantly, single. But Marcus wasn't single. For 7 years, he had been married to Eleanor, a woman he kept tucked away in their Connecticut estate like an embarrassing secret. Eleanor, with her slight limp and quiet demeanor, didn't fit the polished image Marcus projected to his colleagues and social circle. She had been beautiful once, striking even, before the accident that left her with a damaged leg and scattered scars across her left shoulder. The accident had happened just 6 months after their wedding, transforming what had been a whirlwind romance into something Marcus viewed as a burden. "You understand, don't you?" he would say, kissing her forehead before leaving for another gala, another dinner, another weekend in the Hamptons. "These people are sharks. They'd tear you apart. I'm protecting you." And for years, Eleanor believed him. She filled her days with books and gardening, managing the household staff and occasionally visiting her aging mother in Vermont. The sprawling estate became both her sanctuary and her prison. The staff, particularly Mrs. Abernathy, the housekeeper who had been with the property for decades, watched with quiet concern as Eleanor's spirit dimmed a little more each year. "He's ashamed of me," Eleanor confessed one evening, after receiving yet another excuse about why she couldn't accompany Marcus to a charity function. "He doesn't want his perfect world tainted by a wife who limps." Mrs. Abernathy's weathered hands stilled over the silver she was polishing. "Then perhaps, Mrs. Winters, it's time to show him what he's missing." The catalyst came on a rainy Tuesday when Eleanor, sorting through Marcus's discarded mail, discovered an invitation to the Harrington Foundation Gala, the social event of the season. The foundation supported rehabilitation programs for accident victims, a cause that resonated deeply with Eleanor. Attached to the invitation was a note from Vivian Harrington herself: "Marcus, we'd love to finally meet the mysterious Mrs. Winters. 7 years is long enough to keep her all to yourself, don't you think?" Eleanor's hands trembled as she read the note again. 7 years. 7 years of being hidden away, of watching her husband's life through social media posts and society page photographs. 7 years of believing she wasn't good enough. That evening, when Marcus returned home for his monthly overnight stay, Eleanor placed the invitation on the dining table between them. "I'd like to attend this," she said quietly. Marcus barely glanced at it. "Not your scene, Ellie. You'd be uncomfortable. It's for accident rehabilitation." "It's exactly my scene." His expression softened into the patronizing smile she had grown to detest. "You know how these events are. Everyone's standing for hours, dancing, networking. Your leg would be killing you by the end of the night." "My leg is my concern," Eleanor replied, a new edge to her voice. "And I've spent 7 years learning to stand on it just fine." Marcus sighed, reaching for her hand across the table. "I'm trying to protect you." "No," Eleanor said, pulling her hand away. "You're trying to protect yourself." The argument that followed was their first real fight in years, perhaps their first honest conversation since the accident. Words that had festered for years finally erupted: his shame, her isolation, the growing distance between them. When Marcus stormed out to return to the city that night instead of staying as planned, Eleanor made her decision. The next morning, she called Vivian Harrington directly. "Mrs. Harrington? This is Eleanor Winters. I believe you've been wanting to meet me." The weeks that followed transformed Eleanor in ways she hadn't thought possible. With Vivian's guidance, and without Marcus's knowledge, she began preparations to attend the gala. A renowned physical therapist helped strengthen her leg for extended standing and dancing. A stylist was consulted for a gown that would complement rather than hide her body. Eleanor even reconnected with her former colleague from her pre-marriage days at an art gallery, arranging to display some of her own paintings at the gala's silent auction. "He thinks I've been gardening all these years," Eleanor told Vivian during one of their planning sessions. "He has no idea I've been painting again." "Men like Marcus rarely look closely at what they've decided not to see," Vivian replied, her own experience with New York's elite evident in her knowing smile. The night of the gala arrived with perfect early autumn weather. Marcus had left that morning for the city, promising to represent them both at the event. Eleanor waited until he would be fully occupied at the pre-gala reception before making her move. The car Vivian sent delivered Eleanor to the side entrance of the Grand Meridian Hotel. Her heart pounded as she stepped out, her custom gown catching the light. The dress was a masterpiece, silver with subtle blue undertones that matched her eyes, designed to allow freedom of movement while disguising her slight limp. Her dark hair, usually pulled back in a practical ponytail, had been styled in elegant waves that framed her face. "Remember," Vivian said, meeting her at the entrance, "you belong here as much as anyone. More, in fact, you actually care about the cause." Eleanor took a deep breath and nodded. Together, they walked toward the ballroom where New York's wealthiest and most influential were gathered. Through the doors, she could see Marcus holding court near the bar, laughing with a group of admirers. He looked exactly as he always did at these events, confident, charming, and completely in his element. Until he saw her. The moment Eleanor stepped into the ballroom, conversations faltered. Heads turned. Marcus, mid-anecdote, froze as his gaze locked with hers across the room. The champagne flute slipped from his fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Eleanor moved through the crowd with the quiet dignity she had cultivated during her years of solitude. People parted before her, whispers following in her wake. By the time she reached her husband, a small circle had formed around them. "Eleanor," Marcus managed, his voice strangled. "What are you doing here?" She smiled, not the accommodating smile of the wife he had relegated to the shadows, but the confident smile of a woman stepping into the light. "Supporting a cause I believe in," she replied, her voice carrying clearly. "And meeting your friends. After 7 years, it seemed time." The murmurs around them grew. 7 years? His wife? The mysterious Mrs. Winters was real? What happened next would be recounted in social circles for months. Instead of shrinking from the attention, Eleanor blossomed under it. She spoke eloquently about her own recovery journey when asked about her connection to the foundation. She charmed Marcus's business associates with insights he never knew she possessed. When her paintings were discovered in the silent auction, her artistic talent became the talk of the evening. "You never told us your wife was so accomplished, Marcus," commented Richard Harrington, Vivian's husband and one of New York's most respected philanthropists. "There's apparently a great deal about me my husband hasn't shared," Eleanor replied before Marcus could speak. As the evening progressed, Eleanor's natural warmth and genuine interest in others drew people to her. She danced, yes, danced, despite her limp, with several of Marcus's colleagues when the orchestra began playing. She spoke passionately about the foundation's work with accident survivors. And when it came time for the evening speeches, Vivian Harrington surprised everyone by inviting Eleanor to the stage. "Tonight, we're honored to have with us someone who embodies the very spirit of what our foundation stands for," Vivian announced. "Someone who understands firsthand the journey of recovery and reinvention after trauma. Please welcome Eleanor Winters." The applause was thunderous as Eleanor made her way to the podium. Marcus, still stunned by the evening's turn of events, watched as his hidden wife addressed the crowd with poise and vulnerability. 7 years ago, I was in an accident that changed everything, Eleanor began. I lost not just my physical abilities for a time, but my sense of self-worth. I allowed myself to believe that my scars and my limp made me less valuable, less worthy of being seen. She paused, her gaze finding Marcus in the crowd. I'm here tonight to say that no one should ever feel they need to hide away because of what they've survived. Our scars, visible and invisible, are evidence of our strength, not our shame. By the end of her impromptu speech, there wasn't a dry eye in the ballroom. Donation pledges poured in at unprecedented levels. Eleanor's paintings sparked a bidding war. And throughout it all, Marcus watched as the wife he had hidden away became the star around which the entire event revolved. When the gala finally wound down in the early morning hours, Eleanor found herself surrounded by new friends and admirers. Business cards had been pressed into her hands with offers of gallery showings, speaking engagements, and committee positions. Vivian stood nearby, beaming with satisfaction at the evening's success. Marcus approached cautiously, his earlier shock now replaced with a complex mixture of emotions, shame, admiration, and the dawning realization of what he had done to them both. "Eleanor," he said quietly. "Can we talk? Privately?" She regarded him steadily, this man who had once been the center of her world. "Yes," she finally said. "I think it's time we did." They found a quiet corner in the hotel's garden terrace. The night air was cool, stars visible despite the city lights. For a long moment, neither spoke. "You were magnificent tonight," Marcus finally said. "Everyone was captivated by you." "Everyone except you," Eleanor replied. "You decided years ago that I wasn't worth seeing." Marcus flinched. "I thought I was protecting you." "No," Eleanor said firmly. "You were protecting your image. Your perfect life didn't have room for a wife who didn't fit your idea of perfection." "That's not fair," he protested, but the words sounded hollow even to his own ears. "Isn't it?" Eleanor asked. "When was the last time you asked me what I wanted? What made me happy? When was the last time you saw me as a partner rather than a problem to manage?" The questions hung between them, unanswerable because they both knew the truth. Years had passed with Marcus constructing a life that deliberately excluded her, while Eleanor had allowed herself to become invisible. "I don't know if we can fix this," Marcus admitted after a long silence. Eleanor looked out at the garden, at the city beyond. "I don't know either," she said softly. "But I do know I'm not going back to Connecticut to hide away. Not anymore." "What will you do?" he asked. For the first time that evening, uncertainty flickered across Eleanor's face. Then she straightened her shoulders and met his gaze directly. "I'm going to live, Marcus. Really live. Whether that includes you depends on whether you're ready to actually see me, not as the woman you wish I was or the burden you've made me out to be, but as who I really am." As dawn broke over the city, Eleanor and Marcus left the hotel separately, he to the penthouse that had been his exclusive domain for so long, she to the suite Vivian had arranged for her. The future of their marriage remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: Eleanor Winters had stepped out of the shadows, and she had no intention of returning to them. In the weeks that followed, Eleanor's transformation became the talk of New York society. Her paintings were featured in a small but prestigious gallery in Chelsea. She joined the Harrington Foundation's board of directors. And she began the delicate process of deciding whether her marriage could be salvaged or if it was time to forge a completely new path. Marcus, confronted with the consequences of his choices, faced his own reckoning. The carefully constructed image he had maintained for years now seemed hollow in comparison to the authentic connection his wife had formed with others in a single evening. He began the humbling process of truly seeing the woman he had married, not as an accessory or an inconvenience, but as a complete person with depths he had never bothered to explore. Whether Eleanor and Marcus would find their way back to each other remained to be seen. But one thing was certain: the woman who had been hidden away had found her voice, her purpose, and her place in the world. And in doing so, she had not just stolen the gala, she had reclaimed her life. The story of Eleanor Winters reminds us that true worth isn't determined by physical appearance or social acceptance. It comes from embracing our authentic selves, scars and all. Sometimes the people closest to us fail to see our value, but that never diminishes what we have to offer the world. Eleanor's journey from isolation to empowerment shows that it's never too late to step into the light and claim the life you deserve.